Okay, hello guys, and welcome to this video. In this video, we'll be learning how to make websites. So, we're officially starting our web development journey with C Sharp. Over the last weeks, we've learned some simple C Sharp concepts. We've learned about loops. We've learned about um, variables. We've learned about how to convert different types to other types and all of that. And in this video, what we're going to be doing is we'll actually go and make a website in C Sharp and see it in our browser. So we're going to be pausing on the console apps for a while. And the way to make a website in C Sharp, it's not so much different from making a console app. The process is still the same. You open your terminal. So I have my terminal open here, and I'm going to go ahead and hold on, let me just move out of this folder. So the way to create a website project in C Sharp is to type .NET new MVC. Now, when we create console projects, we would normally type .NET new console. But since we want a website now, we'll say .NET new MVC -n, and then we'll give it a name. And I'm going to name mine calculator web. So I'm creating a new website and I'm calling it calculator web, right? I'm going to hit enter and let it create. We see that it's created successfully. It says storage my Node packages. And here we have it. I can say cd calculator web to go into the folder, and then I say code dot to open it up in Visual Studio Code. I'm just going to make my editor a bit bigger. And there we have it. Our project is created, right? And we can see a lot more files and folders than we used to. So we can see a lot more files and folders than we're used to here. There's a controller, there's model, there's object, there's properties. And I don't want you guys to get overwhelmed, right? We're going to talk through everything here. Now, what's the difference? I told you guys that you can use C# for a lot of things, right? And some people have been asking me, oh, what is the CS purge file that is always here? What is the CS purge file? So the CS purge file tells C# what type of application it is working with at a certain point in time. And now you see it's a Microsoft.NET.SDK.web, and this tells C# that, okay, or this tells the C# engine that, okay, this is a web project, right? And that is all you have to know about that for now. Now there's a startup class which we'll talk to later. As for now, let's just ignore it. And there's a program class. We're going to talk to this, what this does, in subsequent episodes. But for now, I just want to open my terminal and just say .NET run, the same way we would run an application in a console application. It's the same command. So we go .NET run and we hit enter. And I want you guys to see what's going to happen here. Okay, so I have some information here. Oh, by the way, if you're doing this for the first time, if you've never created a web project, it might bring up a pop-up and tell you to allow a certificate or something. Just let it. Now back to this, I can see this is an information log. So my project is giving me output. It says Microsoft.hosting.lifecycle now listening on HTTPS localhost 5000 and HTTP localhost 5000. I'm going to take this link, I'll copy it, and then I'll come to my browser and I'll paste it to my browser and hit enter. And look, I have a brand new website, and that really was all I had to do to create a website with C#. I have a brand new website. It has a home page, which is what we can see here, and it has a privacy page. So if I have a privacy policy or terms and conditions, I would put it on this page, right? So this is my home page, and then it's linking on, it says learn more about building web apps in ASP.NET Core. And if you want to jump ahead of the class, you can follow this link and learn about here. But if you prefer to follow the pace of the class, we'll just continue. So let's see, what do we have here? We have a website with 2 pages. How did we come about these pages? To explain this, we will have to talk about something called MVC. MVC. So let's Google MVC. So MVC, according to this page, I'll just zoom into it. So it says MVC stands for model, view, and controller. MVC stands for model, view, and controller. And before I start to bore you guys with the details of what MVC is, or give you some textbook definition, let's actually go ahead and use MVC. MVC is the pattern that you use when you're writing ASP.NET Core applications. Now, I'm not going to say much about that because I feel like you're not ready for that information yet. So I'm actually going to come here to stop this application running. Just hold Control and C, and it says application is shutting down, and it did. I'm going to clear this. I'll close this, and then I'll come to my controllers folder. Remember I said model, view, controller. And here in my controllers folder, I have a controller named home controller, which is a class. Remember we worked with classes, and I said classes can contain different things. So this is my home controller class, which is inheriting from another class called controller. So this symbol means, hey, controller inherits from home controller. And this is an object-oriented pattern inheritance that we're going to talk about later. But if you notice something, in this home controller class, I have a couple of methods. We talk about methods all the time. I have this method, which is public home controller. This is a special type of method because it doesn't specify a return type. So our methods usually have to specify a return type of void or string or something, but this method does not specify a return type. It is called a constructor, and this is the first method that runs when you create an object. So remember our student object. When we created our student object, if we had a constructor in there, that is a method that has the same name as the class name and doesn't have a return type attached to it, that is a constructor method. So when you create a new class, the constructor method runs first, even if you don't use it. And then we have a method in this class called index, and all index does is it returns a view. We have another method called privacy, and all privacy does is return a view. I want to show you something. Let's run this project again. .NET run. This time I'm going to copy this URL. I'll come to my browser, then I'll paste the URL, but instead of hitting enter, I'll say /home. I hope you can see what I'm typing there, but if you can't see it, what I'm typing is I pasted the URL, which is localhost 5000. Your own URL might be different from mine, and then I added /home and /index to it, and I have this page. I'm going to clear the index, and then I'm going to have /home/privacy. And now I have privacy. Let me explain what is going on. We have this URL here. Give me a second. Paste in. I just want you guys to be able to see the URL I typed in. So I have this URL, localhost 5000/home/privacy. But what I want you guys to focus on is the /home/privacy part. They look familiar, and home looks familiar because we have something called a home controller. We have a class called a home controller, and that is why home looks familiar to me. What's next? We have a method called privacy. So what happens when your user browses to a /home/privacy link like this is that our ASP.NET Core application receives the request that someone wants to view /home/privacy, and then what is going to happen is that it checks, do I have a controller that starts with home? And then it says, yes, I have a controller that starts with home. And then it goes ahead and says, in the controller that starts from home, is there a method called privacy? And it says, oh yes, there's a method called privacy. And then it comes right into privacy, and privacy returns a view. And it is this view that is being returned by privacy that our page, that our website displays. So look what happens here. Our website sends something called a request to our web application. Our web application is hosted at this URL. Because right now we're running this application on our browser, we don't have a www.link, but this could have been www.mynewwebsite.com/home/privacy. Now what happens when we hit this is that this request hits our application, which is our application running here, and it checks, the first part of the link says home, and it checks, do I have a controller named home like I mentioned before? And yes, I do. The next thing it's going to check is, do I have a method in that controller named privacy? And then it says, oh yes, I have privacy, and it returns a view. And same for index. I'm going to change this to index, and now I have a different view. So index is returning a view, and privacy is returning a view, and it is this view that the browser displays to your user. Now where does this view come from? Because clearly index's view, the view index returns, is different from the view privacy returns, and that is useful because if we have a web application that all the links to it can only return the same view, then what would we do with that kind of application? Now, some of you might have noticed that there's a views folder here. I'm going to go ahead and open this views folder. And within this view folder, there's a home folder. Look, this is a home folder, and this is a home controller. Now, all the views that will be returned by the home controller are going to be held in the home view folder. So look, we have an index.cshtml. Now, we're going to talk about why it has a CSHTML attached to it, but that is a convention in C#. And we have another view called a privacy.cshtml. So what happens when our method says return view is that the application comes into the views folder and says, the home controller and the index action is asking me to return a view. So it comes into the views folder and says, hey view, is there a subfolder called home? And then our view folder says, yes, there's a subfolder called home. And then it says, okay, the index is telling me to return a view. Is there a view in the home folder called index? And then the views folder responding, oh yes, there's actually a view called index, and it says, okay, give me the content of that view, and the content of that view is given to the engine, which is ASP.NET Core, and that content is returned to the browser. Let us take a look at what is in this folder, and we can see that this is HTML. If you've done some, apart from, so this is C#, the first part is C# specific syntax, which is Razor. It is called Razor. We're going to learn about it. But apart from that, the other part is HTML. Now, I know some of you have been taking HTML lectures, but if you don't know what HTML is what we use to actually define the interface of a website. So when we talk about front end and back end, we have HTML on the front end for describing what a site should look like, and then we have C# at the back end for actually manipulating the data. So HTML puts a button on the screen. C# says what happens when that button is clicked. So HTML can get a button on the screen, but it can't give a lot of functionality to that button. You now need a programming language like C# to define what should happen when that button is clicked. So we have this text welcome here, and if we go to our browser, we can see that we have the text welcome here, which is a H1 class. And then it says learn more about building web apps with ASP.NET Core, and that is exactly what we have in this browser. So like we said before, our index action in the home controller returns a view. And how does it find that view? It comes to the views folder, it finds a subfolder called home, and it finds the index.cshtml, which is a special type of HTML for C#. I mean, it's not special, it just has more properties. And then if we come here and we change this from /home/index to /home/privacy, we see a different page is returned. And now I guess you can know that that is because we came into the home folder and we came to the privacy page, and this page says use this page to detail your site's privacy policy, and that's the same thing here. Use this page to detail your site's privacy policy. I'm going to edit this, and I'm going to say this content cannot be stolen or duplicated. So I'm just going to change this to probably an actual privacy policy, and then I'm going to come to my browser and I'll refresh. I'm going to stop my application and then .NET will run again. I'm just going to wait for it to build and run. Okay, so it's ready. I'm going to come to my browser and hit enter, and you see that my content has changed. It now says this content cannot be stolen or duplicated. So like I said, when you want to change things that appear on the screen, you edit the HTML in the views folder. Good. Let us go ahead and I'm going to stop this, and I'm going to add a new action. So we have an index action, we have a privacy action. Let's add a index action, public I action result new page. So let's call this action new page, right? I can't think of something better now. And what we're going to do is we're simply going to say return view. So this action, so we call this actions. So methods within a controller, public methods within a controller are called actions. So we're calling this an action. And now we can navigate to this just like any other page in our site. Going to open up my terminal. I think I'll use this terminal because I don't have to. I'm just going to say .NET run. And now instead of two, I have three actions. I have my index action, I have my privacy action, and I have my new page action. So this time I'm going to come to /home/new page because it's there. And I have an error, and reading your error messages really help. Reading your error messages, and it says here, what does my error message say? It says invalid operation exception, That means, hey Vincent, you're trying to do something that is invalid. Why would you want to do this? And it says the view new page was not found. And it says the following locations were searched. It says, hey, I checked the views folder /home/new page, and I didn't find a new page to return. And it says I also searched the views shared new page. I didn't find a new page to return. Now, why are we having this error? If you remember correctly, I mentioned that when we say return view, it comes to the view folder and it looks for the corresponding view to return. Now, we haven't created a corresponding view here, and that is why we're getting this error. It says, okay, I can find an action. I know that the action is here, but I can't find the view. Right? I have searched everywhere and I can't find the view. And the way to correct that is to add a new view page. I'm going to right click here and I'm going to say new file, and I'll name this file new page.cs html. Now the difference between this file and a regular HTML file is that I'm naming it itself.html and naming it cs.html. I'm going to just take this content. I'm going to copy everything from the privacy page and I'm going to bring it here. For the title, I'm going to change the title to be new page, and I'm going to say, hey there, we created our own new page. Isn't that cool? And let's just add exclamation marks for emphasis. I'm going to stop our application. I'll clear the console and I'll go .NET run. Okay, so let's go back to the browser and I'm just going to hit enter again. And this time I don't have an error, it just displays new page. So my new page is now valid. I can add whatever I want on this page. I can add buttons, I can add images, I can add, and this is going to be the foundation. So if your takeaway from this video is that you can create an ASP.NET Core web application and add a page, add a new page, then that's a lot. So let's see, the reason our application works now is because we actually have a new page, and it's what we've said. Hey, we want the title to be new page, which is up here, new page, and we want this text here, and here it is, hey there, we created our own new page. Isn't that cool? Now what happens if we try to navigate to an action? We've seen what happens when we try to navigate to a view that doesn't exist, but let's try to navigate to /home/new page 2. We know we don't have any action called new page 2. So I'm going to hit enter and it says, hey, it's showing an error here, 404. It's saying page not found, right? So it's saying, hey, I checked the home controller, well, there's no new page 2 action there. And if I go here and I say /profile, or if I say /user/profile and I hit enter, it says 404. It's an error 404. It says, hey, there's no controller named user controller, and there's no page named profile. There's no action. I can't find this. This route does not exist. So let's come back to our conversation about MVC. I've been talking about views and controllers, and the relationship between them is that when a user wants to access a page in your application, they send a request to a controller. In this case, our controller is home controller, but our user doesn't have to type home controller. They type home, which is the name of the controller, and they type the action they want to get to. In this case, let's say our action is index, and it brings us to the index page. What happens is that our application uses a controller to match, okay, where does the person want to go to? The person said home, so it must be the home controller, and the person says index, so they want to get to the index, and then we click on the view. You see how we're using controllers to organize the parts of our application, and that is the model view controller part of it. So far we've only talked about the view and the controller part. So we've seen how to navigate to a controller and return a view. We've not talked about the model part, and quite honestly, we're not going to talk about the model part in this video, because talking about the model, we're talking about data. We'll do that in a different video. I don't want this overwhelmed. Okay, so that's the view and the controller. Let's go ahead and add our own controller. So the way to add our own controller is when you create a controller, you add the word controller to the name of any controller you create. So I'm just going to say right click here, and I'm going to say new file, and I'll call this file calc controller, right? That's a mistake. That should be calc controller.cs, and I'm just going to take some code from here. So public class home controller. Let's not forget our namespace. So I'm going to take this namespace, and then don't forget to open and closing braces, and then I'll say public class calc, remember the controller, calc controller. Now I have a controller, but for this to be a controller, I have to inherit from a special class called controller. So I'll come to calc controller and add a column and add the word controller. Now this is going to return a red line because we need a namespace. Remember how I told you we need to import some namespaces in previous videos. So the way to do that is just hold your control key and full stop, control dot, and it's going to say, hey, do you want to add using Microsoft.asp.net core.mvc? I'm going to accept that, and or if that doesn't come up for you, you can just manually type it out using Microsoft.asp.net core.mvc. And I have a calc controller, right? The next thing to do, I want to create, what we want to do here, we want to create a page where someone can get to and enter two numbers and get a value back. So we want a user to be able to add two numbers and get, so we're making an addition website. So to do that, we need an action, right, that is actually going to perform the addition. So we're going to say public action result add public action result add and then I'm going to return a view. So we have public action result add, and we're returning a view, right? Now let's test this. So we've created our own controller and we've added a view to it, add. And I'm going to stop this, clear it, and say .NET run. Alright, great. Let's go to our browser. We already have localhost 5000. I'm going to say slash. Instead of home this time, I'll say calc because that's the name of my new controller, and I'll say add. And look, we have the same error again, the same, the view add was not found, blah blah blah. And right now we know what our problem is. We haven't created the view folder. So I'm going to stop this, clear my console. I'm going to come here, and since we have a new controller, our new controller needs its own folder in the views folder. I'm going to add a new controller. I'm going to call it calc without the controller. And then within calc, I'm going to need the add view. So I'm going to say new file, add. It must match the name of the action, CSHTML. I'm just going to take some code from the home code and just put it there. So I'm going to paste this here, and the title is going to be addition page, and then the text is going to be the addition calculator. I'm going to just take this out. I'll run the app again. Okay, so I'll just come back to this error page and just hit enter again, and see that this time we're actually at the addition page. And if you look at the title in your browser, it says addition page and the addition calculator. But what we need, we actually need boxes. We want to be able to perform an addition here. So we're going to come and edit our view. I'm going to create a new div here. I'm not very good with views, so pardon me however this view turns out. I'm going to have an input type equals let's say number, placeholder equals first number. I'm just going to close this. I'm going to have another input type equals number, placeholder equals second number. I'm going to close this too, and then I'm going to have a button type equals submit, the text, a title. Okay, you know what? Let's just use this and say submit. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, so we have this here. We have first number, we have second number, and we have our submit button. How do I center this? You know what? I'm just not going to bother with that, please. As long as it works, right? So I have first number here. I can type in 10, and for second number I can type in 50, and I want to hit submit and have it return a. I want to hit submit and have it return a value to the user, right? I want to see the user display. I want to see it display a value. So to do this, what we need to happen here is that we need to use something called a form, and I'm just going to ask you guys to watch me work here, and we'll explain when we're done. So before I say anything about this, I'm just going to test it out. Okay, so I'll just refresh this and hit submit. Alright, great. So I can see that I have an error. It means what I have here works. Now what are we doing here? We're using something called a form. So anytime you want to submit information from a web page back to your application, because this time, remember, to take user inputs in a console application, you use the console.readline to take input from a user. Well, in the context of a web, we obviously can take input from the user using console.readline, right? So what we name equals, so what we do instead is we use forms. We put forms, and if you've been using websites, forms shouldn't be strange to you. And how do you build a form? In ASP.NET, in different languages, we have different ways to build the forms. One of the most important elements on a form is the submit button, right? So the submit button tells your application, hey, I am done filling this form, send it back to the application for me. What this part of the code does, ASP.controller, ASP controller tells our form which controller to send the form to. So in the same way that our link, when we say /calc/ when we say /home/privacy, the same way it tells our browser or it tells our application which view we want to see. In the same way, this attribute here tells our application where we are trying to submit this information to, right? I hope that is understood. So we're telling our application that, hey, we're sending this information to the calc controller and to an action on the calc controller called add, right? It says, hey, we're sending this to the calc controller and to an action named add with a method called posts. Now, let us run this application and see what happens. So if you've gotten up to this point, I'm just going to come here and go to /calc/add and hit enter. I can see my calculator. Great, I should be able to do some calculation now, right? Let's see. So I type 10 here and I type 2 because I want my answer to be 12, and I click submit. But look what happened. It's saying, hey, there's no web page. I can't find that action called the add action. And I'm like, hold on, but I have an add action. I know I have an add action, and yes, I do have an add action. So what's the problem then? Well, the problem is this add action we have it's a different kind of add action from what we need. And the web works in a certain way. Let me show you something. HTTP methods. So there are different types of methods you can send to an application. You can request. So requests are as you can like literally request. I can send a GET request to a web application or a website, and what GET request does is I'm saying, hey, give me information from this site. I am not sending you anything right now. I just want to give you information. And as a matter of fact, that is what this method is. This is a GET method. This method doesn't take anything from the user. It will only always return a view. And as a matter of fact, this method has an implicit property on it. It has the property called HTTP GET on it. So this is a GET method. This method cannot accept form input. I don't know if that is clear, but this method cannot accept form input. It is a GET method. To accept input from our users on a form, we have to create a different method, public action result. And what is going to be the name of this method? Well, in our view, we've said the name of this method is going to be add. But hey, look, we have an add method already. I know that. But this time, this method itself is going to have a property called HTTP post. So the post request is the type of request that sends some information to the server. And when you use forms, you create a post request. And now I have an error here because it tells me the calc controller already defines a member called add with the same parameter types. And like I know that, but the difference is I'm actually going to be expecting my user to send me some information. And look, I added some properties here called first number and second number. So my user is going to be sending me two properties called first number and second number. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to say, hey, this method, remember we said methods can accept arguments to work on. And I'm going to say, hey, I'm expecting this to send me a string called first number and another string, so first number and another string called second number. Great. I still need to return something. If not, this is not going to work. So I'm just going to return view. So for now, we'll just return the same view. What's going to happen when it hits this return view is it's going to come and return this, what's it called? It's going to come and return this add view anyways. But let's just check that this works. I'm going to stop my application. With Ctrl+C, I'll clear my terminal and go .NET run. And I'll just remind you that the last time we tried to submit our input, it told us HTTP error 404, which means, hey, I can't find that action. Let's see what the result is going to be this time. Okay, it looks like we're ready. So I'm just going to hit this. Okay, we have a different mistake. We need to come into our form. Need to come to our form here and change this from calc controller to just calc. This is a mistake. So calc, and then I'm going to clear this. So we have a calculator. Once again, I'm going to type 10. I'm going to type 2. I'm going to hit submit. Okay, sorry. I cleared this, but I didn't rebuild our application. So I'll just stop this. I'll clear and I'll go .NET run again. Alright, hopefully all will be well this time. I'll take the controller out of my. Okay, so first number is going to be 10, second is 2. I'll hit submit. And if you notice what happened, the page refreshed, right? So we no longer have that controller not found error. What happened this time was it came and it hit our second controller, our second action, which is the post one. And then because our post controller is saying, hey, return a view, right? We return the same view, which is this view. And we can tell it's a new view because the things we filled in are gone. So 10 to submit. But this is not the behavior we want. We want this thing to actually calculate a result and give the results back to the user. Now, what is going to happen when it hits this? It's going to take whatever the person filled in as first number and whatever the person filled in as second number, and it is going to provide the values here for us to use. And to illustrate that, I'm going to stop this for a second, and then I'm going to come here. This is on the left here. This is the debug symbol, and we haven't used it so far. I'm just going to click on it here, and I'm going to say create a launch.json file, and this is going to help us debug our application. So I'll click this to create a launch.json file. Just give it a few seconds. And it's asking me here which type of launch.json file. I have a number of options here because I work with a couple programming languages. I'm going to select here, I want to launch the JSON file for .NET Core, and then it creates it, right? we can simply go ahead and close it. If we switch back here, we can see our files. If we switch here, we no longer see create a launch the JSON file. We now see this run button, which says start debugging. And what debugging lets us to do is it lets us to step through our code line by line as it is executing. I'm going to click the run, so it starts the debugger. I'm just going to wait for a while for it to tell us that it's ready. Okay, so it's getting ready. It launches our application, and it launches our application to our home page, right? What I'm going to do, I'm going to come over here, and when I hover on the edge here, just before the numbers, I can see it's highlighting certain places red. On this line, I'm going to come to line 15. In front of line 15, I'm going to click. And what I have done is I have added a breakpoint. It means when my code execution gets to this method, it is going to pause here until I tell it to continue. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to come to my /calc/add. I'll fill in my two numbers again, 10 and 2, and I'll click submit. But this time, look, there's a line here in VS Code, and if I hover on first number, I can see that first number is 10. And if I hover on second number, I can see that second number is 2. So the values entered were actually moved here, 10 and 2. And why is that? It's because we named these input boxes first number and second number. And we told our controller that, hey, expect properties named first number and second number. Now we can use these values here. I can stop the application since I'm sure that these values indeed get to my application. I'm going to say int number1 equals int.pass. So because it's a string currently, I have to pass it. And int number2 equals int.pass second number, right? And now I have my two numbers. I can now say int result equals number1 plus number2, and there my calculator works. But now I need a way to return this value to my user, right? What I'm going to do there are very standard ways to handle this, but what we're going to do right now is we're just going to use something called a view bag, which can transmit small bits of information from your controller action to your view. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to say view bag dot result equals result, right? So I'm simply taking result and I'm putting it in something called a view bag dot result, right? And then I say return view. And what I'm going to do here is I'm now going to go to my view and display this result to the user. I'm going to come up here and say I'm going to create another div. Now the great thing with CSHTML is that I can now have C# statements in my HTML. Just the same way you can have JavaScript in your HTML, I can have C# in my HTML. So I can say if view bag dot result is not equal to null, and I'll explain what I'm doing here once I'm done. If view bag dot result is not equal to none, create a div and say the I'll say okay, there should be a p the result of your last computation is, and then I say viewBag.result. So viewBag.result is like a variable that I just dropped the result of our calculation into, right? And I'll come back and explain what all of this is. No, for now I just want to verify that this works. So I'm going to say clear, then .NET run. Okay, so application is ready. I'm going to come here, /calc/add. Oh, we have a problem here. I will say I'm supposed to add an @ here. Let's see. Let's check all of this. Okay, so just fix that up. I'll say clear and .NET run. Alright, so let's see if that works. Okay, so we have first number, second number. I'm going to type in 10, and I'm going to type in 2 again. I'm going to hit submit, and it says the result of your last computation is viewBag.result. So we have to add the @ symbol again. That's how we tell our application that hey, we don't want the literal, this literal, we want the value, we want the value that is stored in that variable. Let's see, I think I'm forgetting something here, but okay, so we see the result of your last, so I'm just going to expand this. So it says the result of your last computation is 12, and then let's say 30 and 40 and submit, and it says the result of your last computation is 70, then 50 and 50 and submit, and it says the result of your last computation is 100. So we know that our calculator works. Now let's explain what I'm doing in this view. So the first time when we just use our website like this, right, we don't see the result of the first calculation up here, even though it is part of our HTML. But what happens in that scenario is that because our first result is a GET request, we're not sending any information. It simply comes here and it returns a result. It does not set this variable. It does not set this viewBag.result variable. So when it gets to the view, viewBag.result is going to be null. And I'm saying, hey, only add this part to the page when viewBag.result is not null. So the first time we request for our page, it's a GET request. At this point, we are not sending anything back to our web server. We're only saying, hey, give me this page. And it comes here and it says, okay, viewBag.result is not set. That means he doesn't want me to display this part of the page. So only display this part. Now, when I have things filled in here, say 10 and 2, and I say submit, it tells me the result of your last computation is 12. That is because this time we come into the post add controller, the ones that actually takes values from the user, and then we are setting this viewBag result to the result of our computation. And then this time when it gets to our view, which is app.cshtml, it's going to do this check I need to say yes, it is not null, there's a value in there, and then it's going to add this markup. So CS HTML is very powerful in that depending on what happens in your computation, you can decide to return a value, you can decide to return a different page, or add something to your page, or remove something to your page. And this really is going to be the end of this lecture. My goal with this lecture is for you to see what a controller is, what a view is. We're going to talk about model and its role in our next lecture. But for now, I just want us to understand how to create a new application and how to actually make a calculator. If you feel like adding an action for subtraction, please go ahead and do that. But I'm going to be stopping this lecture here now. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.